start off with lick number 1. Let's play that slowly. So what's happening there is Trey is targeting a lot of the chord tones that we have in the chords underneath the solo. There's only 2 chords for this part of the solo, and that's the F chord and the B flat chord. So here we've got the G shape of F. So we've got the root, 3rd, 5th, root, 3rd, 5th, root. So that is the 5th of F, which is the C note. And right there is the B flat chord. And that's our C shape of B flat, a very common shape when you're looking at Trey's playing. That probably sounds familiar to you. And in B flat we've got root, 3rd, 5th, root, 3rd, 5th. So we went from connecting the 5th of F to the root of B flat, and that's a 3rd, and then the 5th of F. Then he does a little hiccup, kind of plays an octave. And the reason why this lick hooks the listener from the very beginning is that we're combining a melodic approach with a motif or a motive, which is a fragment of a melody that repeats. Wikipedia defines the motif as the smallest structural unit possessing thematic identity. And so composers call motifs, they often call them themes. And Trey is definitely thinking like a composer with this lick, because he's got that really strong theme that repeats right from the get-go. For the second part of this lick, we're in B flat. So we've got the 3rd of B flat, and then the 5th of B flat. And we bend from G up to A, and A is the 3rd of F. So there's one major takeaway from this lick, and that is when you're improvising, you can try starting your solo with a meaningful singable line. And if you want a surefire way of doing this, you can give emphasis to the chord tones while playing simple repeating rhythms, which is what Trey is doing here. So let's take a look at lick number 1 once more. Do it slowly. Lick 2. Slowly. So for this lick, Trey's centering around F mixolydian, which is a mode. And this is F mixolydian in our shape right here. In our G shape, sorry. Of course, there's our root, the F. So in the last lick, we talked about honing in on the chord tones. And in this lick, we see a completely different approach. And that's the idea of using one scale over both chords without a hard focus on what chord tones we're hitting on what beat, which is a very common way people improvise in all styles of music, particularly in Fish. It happens all the time. So this lick is primarily rhythmic. So that, again, there's no real strong melody necessarily. It's more of a rhythmic approach and builds a little bit of excitement. And this lick is more of a kind of an idea bridge for lick 3, which is the real centerpiece of the first part of the solo. But for this lick, it seems that Trey's already starting to think more rhythmically instead of melodically. Again, in lick 1, we had that melodic approach, and in lick 2, we're starting to see a little bit more of a rhythmic approach. So, lick 2. Slowly. Lick 3. So this one is a bit of a mind bender. It's difficult and almost pointless to play this without a backing track or a metronome or behind the actual studio recording. So keep that in mind when you're practicing it. So with that in mind, I'm going to switch to the room sound for a minute. So you're going to hear the audio shift. So I'll play the lick to the studio recording, slowed down to around 75% speed. Actually slowed down to exactly 75% speed. So let's do that right now. One more time. So hopefully you could hear what was going on in that lick. And I recall reading an interview. I think it was Mike who said this, but I could be wrong. He said he talked about seeing Sonny Rollins, the great tenor saxophonist, play a long swing and solo with just one note, kind of repeating. And Trey pretty much does that here. He's also thinking and playing the guitar like a drummer, and we all know that he is a very talented drummer. I mean, he's no Fish, but he's a really, he can hold his own. And there's even a bit of telepathy when he copies Fish for 3 snare hits. So, and then he goes. There's that bop 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 ba da da, and it's really cool. It only happens in a flash, but you can distinctly hear it on the recording, and it's really cool. They're definitely playing off each other, and that brings us to our next takeaway, which is copy the drummer. So most of the great improvisers say that we play our best when we're not listening to ourselves, and instead of listening to ourselves when we're playing, we should listen to everyone else in the band. So Trey's definitely doing that here. There's no question about it. That's definitely his approach during this lick and this part of the solo. So the next time you're jamming with others or a backing track, take a few seconds to copy the drummer and let your right hand's imagination kind of go on autopilot and see what happens, because that's exactly what he's happened here. So Trey's doing like the I think sax players call it the false fingerings, where there's 2 ways to play the same note. We've got the A on the B string. Grant Green, the great guitar player, did that a lot. It's a very common approach in jazz. Charlie Christian, I think, one of the original great jazz guitar players, did that a lot too. So it's a very common jazz approach. So again, there's that right hand kind of autopilot thing that's going on, where he's just kind of that wasn't necessarily the lick, but that's just kind of explaining or demonstrating how you can just let your right hand do its own thing and feel the rhythm of what's going on around you, and seeing what happens when you do that. So melodically, there's something going on in the solo too. So Trey chooses the A note to be kind of the note that he uses to kind of, be his snare drum, so to speak. And why is that important? We talked about how A is the third of F. 1, right? And that's the note that he's playing. A is also the major 7th of B flat. our B flat chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the note A sounds very pretty over the F because it's the third, and it sounds very pretty over the B flat because it's the major seventh. So it's a really great note choice. I don't think he thought about it in advance necessarily, but it sounds, F. Just a little B flat mini power chord with our A on top. So that's why this lick sounds extra good. It's not only the rhythm that he's using, which is pretty cool, but it's the note that he chooses, which happens to be a common chord tone in a way of both the chords that are in the progression. So A is the third of F, and it's also the major seventh of B flat. And that's why these two chord tones sound especially kind of sweet in this solo, in this lick. And that's why the lick is basically just one note through the whole thing, but it still sounds really pretty. Lick 4. Slowly. So this is another lick where we are thinking and playing like a drummer for the first part by really continuing to pound the chord tone, like we did in the previous lick. But now we have another shift going on in Trey's approach. So in the first lick, we talked about choosing notes to emphasize the chords underneath, kind of that melodic approach. When the chord changes, you change your note too. And in this lick, we've got the same approach, a similar approach as lick 2, where we're playing one scale over both chords. And what we have here is a lick in F hexatonic. This scale is the same as the F major pentatonic with the addition of the natural fourth. So the F major pentatonic sounds like this. The F major pentatonic and the D minor pentatonic have the same notes. And we talked about adding the natural fourth to make it the hexatonic. Again, pentatonic 5, hexatonic 6. So this scale has 6 notes. And this is often called the Allman Brothers scale. You may be able to hear the it's definitely got that Dickie Betts-ish sound. So this lick doesn't necessarily have the Dickie sound, but I mean the scale in general kind of does. So lick 4 one more time slowly. Lick 5. Slowly. So here we've got another lick that serves as an idea bridge for lick number 6, which is a real head turner. But lick 5 is just a simple motif that we are going to be repeating in the next lick. All these notes are out of the F major pentatonic. So lick 5 slowly. One more time slowly. Lick 6. Slowly. So we start this lick by repeating lick 5. That was lick 5. And then we do some more footwork on F mixolydian over the F chord. So our flat 7th right there of F, or flat 7th of F. And then when Trey plays that note, we're on the root of B flat, and he's very purposely targeting it. So he plays that little lick. So he goes from the root right up the B flat scale. 1, 1, 2, 3. And then he does a little dance where he surrounds the root of the next chord, which now we're into the next part of the solo. Right there, he plays the D flat note, and we're in the D flat chord right there. And that's a common approach where you're kind of playing. We're in the B flat chord. We're playing these two notes out of the F major pentatonic scale. So we go, and that surrounding approach is something that a lot of the bebop guys did, and Trey definitely spent time analyzing a lot of the great improvisers like Bird, which brings us to our next takeaway, which is to nail the chord changes. And the reason I'm saying that now, even though we talked about nailing the chord changes before, is that consider the fact that we had a long stretch of kind of on the F major tonality. The whole, for the last several bars, we kind of had that sound. So, and then what happens right after this lick, that's when it goes into the, D flat, E flat, for the last part of the solo. So, considering that we had all of that, we had all this kind of stuff going on in F, as soon as it changes to the D flat chord, what does Trey do? He gets right to that root of the D flat chord. He doesn't lay out. He doesn't play something else. He doesn't continue to play another scale. He lands right on that D flat. So when you're nailing the chord changes, you're kind of harnessing the essence of what makes a lick like this so powerful. And now would be also a good time to learn your D flat arpeggio in the C shape, in case you haven't. Again, the same. Since it's our C shape, it talks about playing in B flat. Here's our root, D flat. The reason I'm talking about this is because the next lick is in D flat. So let's talk about that now. Lick 7. One more time slowly. So right during this part of the solo, we're in the. And what's interesting is that in the studio recording, we talked. You can hear how they go back to the chorus and Trey solos over that. But I don't think I've ever heard them do that live, either in person at a show or on a tape or anything. It's pretty much as soon as the jam starts, they're always in F, and they kind of do whatever from there, and they never come back to that. So I mean, if you know of a version where they do come back to the at the end of the jam, let me know, because I'd be interested to hear it. So anyway, we were in F before, and now we're in D flat. So to nail the D flat, Trey plays the D flat major arpeggio up and down. So. All of those notes are right out of the D flat arpeggio. Starts on the root, slides up to the third, and goes right up the arpeggio. And then he hits the 13th of E flat. Here's E flat, E flat chord. C is the 13th. Now, if we're going to put these notes under a microscope, there's a little bit of tension when we hit the 13th, which is considered a non-chord tone in this case. So we hit the 13th on the downbeat. Again, we go from the D flat chord to the E flat chord. And so it's kind of a microscopic tension, or at least going there, where he purposely hits that non-chord tone on the E flat. on the E flat chord, and then resolves, and then he resolves to the third, which is G of the E flat chord. So lick 7 one more time slowly. Yikes. Lick 7 slowly. Lick 8. Slowly. This is one of my favorite licks in the solo, and one that you can rip off if you're ever in a dominant or blues bass context. So first, we've got some really efficient and beautiful voice leading in this lick, where we're in the E flat chord, and so right there we're in the E flat chord. G is the third of E flat, connects the third of E flat to the root of F. And then he lays down a really cool phrase that mixes F mixolydian with an F minor blues scale. So let's talk about those two scales in this position that we're in right here. F mixolydian. This is the E shape. And then the good old F minor blues scale. So the first part of the lick, that's all right out of F mixolydian. And then it's kind of a ghost note where he goes. And the 14th, that note where you see 14 on the G string, it's almost a ghost note. It happens really quickly and it's barely there. And that is a pre-bend on the 16th to the 15th fret on the B string. So he bends up. So, and then right after that, the rest of the notes are right out of the F minor blues scale. So lick 8 slowly. Lick 9. Let's play it slowly. One more time slowly. So this lick is really cool. Trey goes through arpeggio approaches again. So I just play the D flat, then an E flat, then an F chord. So actually, let's talk about what happens right when we're going into this lick. So the end of lick 8 is he goes pretty much right down the F minor blues scale. Then he goes, which sounds really good because he nails the root of the D flat chord coming out of that F minor blues scale. And then he slides up and plays right up the D flat arpeggio. And then we've got more voice leading where he connects the 5th of D flat, A flat, to the 5th of E flat, and then he goes up the E flat arpeggio, triad. And right there he lands, he goes on the 3rd of F, which sounds really powerful. Again, because we're honing in on that chord tone. So in this little E flat arpeggio, we do have one note that is outside the arpeggio, which is the C note, which is the 13th. You can see that that note is in there. So it goes from the E flat arpeggio with the 13th, and he lands on the 3rd of F, and he goes right, 2 more chord tones. Third, root, 3rd, root, 5th. So lick 9 slowly. Let's try that one more time slowly. Lick 10. Slowly. So this is the 3rd time in the solo that we're back to the D flat chord, or the 3rd time in this section of the solo. And the 2 previous times, we talked about how Trey used the D flat major arpeggio. And this time we've got a completely different approach. As you can hear, he's not going. He's not, again, we talked about hitting the chord tones, and he's not doing that here necessarily, the way he was doing it before. So what he's doing is, first he does land on the 3rd of B flat. F is the 3rd of D flat. And then he lands on the 5th of E flat. So we do have a chord tone approach in that case, where he's hitting the strong beats. He's hitting the kind of those strong notes on the strong beats. But in between them, to kind of get from point A to point B, he's playing right through the F minor blues scale over all of these changing chords. Land on a chord tone. Blues lick. Oh, and there is that on the G string and over that E flat chord. We've got a bend up and a plucked release. And this might sound weird. I'm using a heavy gauge strings here, so this G sounds a little thick, a little rubber bandy. And Trey kind of lets us in on a little secret here. He could have used the F minor blues scale or the F minor pentatonic over the whole D flat, E flat, F chord progression. Over. Because it'll sound good. It'll sound good if you do that over the whole thing. But he chooses not to. He and I think that's very purposeful. And he saves that approach, the kind of rip and blues stuff, for later on in the solo, which is why it sounds extra good. And I feel like our ears always kind of crave the blues, and that's why it feels so satisfying to finally hear that kind of lick at this point in the solo when it's almost over, but it still makes it really powerful. Because he was kind of doing that blues noodly kind of stuff in the beginning or through the whole thing. Maybe it wouldn't get old, but it's saving it for this part of the solo makes it extra powerful and really satisfying, kind of like the dessert. And speaking of the blues, the final lick is a classic, really old blues phrase. But it does not sound like a blues phrase. At least to me, it doesn't sound like a blues phrase in this context. But so maybe it sounds like a blues phrase to you, but probably because it goes by so fast. And for that last part of the lick, leading up to the F chord, he does land on the. So he's got the. He lands on the fifth, which is C. And that first note, it goes by really fast. So it sounds. So he doesn't pluck it after he slides. He slides into it, and then plucks the rest of the notes. So it sounds like, at tempo, it sounds like it goes by so fast you can barely hear it. But it's there. So lick 10, one more time slowly. Well, we've made it to the last lick of the solo, so thank you and congratulations for sticking around this long. Before we continue, if you guys enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know if you have a favorite lick or if you have any requests for other solos or licks or songs that you'd like to be analyzed in such a nerdly fashion. Let me know in the comments below. So lick 11, let's take it slow. So what's happening here is that Trey's superimposing a D-flat major triad over the F chord. We've got our C shape of the D-flat chord. But he's not playing this triad while there's a D-flat chord behind him. The band's not playing that. The band's playing an F chord behind him when he plays that D-flat triad. And it adds some really cool tension when he superimposes this triad, the D-flat triad, over the F chord. We've got the minor third of F, the root of F, and the sharp fifth, which is why this lick sounds so different than any others before it. He hasn't kind of used this approach yet anywhere else, so it sounds really novel to the ear. And we've got some chromatic stuff going on here too. So he's got the D-flat triad, and then he plays a C note, and then right here, that's the downbeat of the D-flat chord, and he's playing kind of a non-chord. He plays a non-chord tone, which adds a little bit of tension. It adds that little bit of tension to this to when that chord is happening. He goes again, another chromatic bebop approach where you're playing these chromatic notes around a chord tone, because it goes so D flat, so D flat, E flat. So he's surrounding the chord tones of the third of E flat. And that's why that sounds so cool, because he's got all these chromatic tones, adding that tension, but then he resolves it beautifully. Again, that's almost a textbook bebop lick. You hear a lot of the guys in the 50s and 40s, 50s, and beyond play that kind of stuff. Maybe not through a whole solo, but over certain chords and certain times, which is what Trey does here. Sorry. And then finally, so talked about playing. So right there is the E flat chord. So, and what a lesser guitarist may do to resolve might play like an F right there. But instead of resolving the E flat and resolving that third down to the root, what does he do? Big old power chord. And that brings us to our final takeaway, which is to think like an orchestra, which is, I feel like that's something he's doing right here at the end of the solo. Like, again, like he could have ended it right there because he's right there, but what does he decide to do? He decides to spend all that energy and slide down and play a big F chord, an F power chord. And I'm not by no means a classical music expert or anything, but that's something you hear towards the end of a lot of classical pieces. You know, got this little high thing that's happening, and then it goes, right? And he doesn't rely on the rest of the band to kind of supply that for him. He does it himself. He's playing all this beautiful high stuff right up here, like the flutes, you know, kind of doing their thing, and then the big whole swell. Which I think sounds awesome. So lick 11 one more time. Cool, that's it. Once again, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.